It appears that Disney CEO Bob Iger is unsure of how to handle the Snow White live-action remake after its trailer became one of the most hated in movie history. Reports indicate that they are reworking parts of the film, cutting scenes they think fans won't like. But is that enough to solve the issue? Iger is reportedly frustrated and doubtful of the production team's direction.
It's left-wing policies hurt shareholders. In new SEC filing, Disney is now admitting that it's been slapped by its own customers for its far-left social and political agenda.
Given the type of year Disney has had, the CEO is likely counting down the days until 2025. However, what was the mistake they made? They began adapting old classic stories into live action while completely tempering the story in accordance with their vision of diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, everything backfired because it was more about attacking the existence of white men than it was about accepting everyone. By any measure, it has been a completely disastrous phase for the company. Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, most likely spent more time frantically putting out fires than he did doing anything else. Really, it wasn't just one or two busts, it was bust after bust at this point. It's as if they've turned losing money into an art form, and the timing couldn't be more ideal. It all happened during Disney's 100th anniversary, which was supposed to be a generous year for the company, but ended up being one of the worst years in Disney's history.
In March of 2022, $254 billion, a decline of, Vinny, you ready? They lost $196 billion in 1 year.
What?
$196 billion, a 56% drop-off.
$196 billion, a 56% decrease. And now, as if things weren't already dire, Snow White 2025 is looking to be an even worse catastrophe. Since this endeavor is going so poorly, 5 failed test screenings, it's almost impressive. That's not a warning sign. It's a huge neon sign that says, abort the mission. Despite the public outcry, ongoing boycotts, and behind-the-scenes drama involving Rachel Zler and Galadoo, Disney is still making a valiant effort to save what's left of this sinking ship. The problem is not just about Snow White. It's about Disney's unwavering push for diversity, equity, and inclusion day in a way that seems more theatrical than authentic. While inclusivity is a good thing and should have been happening organically for a long time, Disney's strategy is more about alienating devoted fans than it is about recognizing everyone. Instead, they've made it into a battle painting. Only a mindless person would enjoy this film, and speaking of being fed up, rumors have it that Bob Iger is going crazy behind the scenes, panicking and doing everything he can to keep the business afloat. However, damage control isn't exactly his strong suit. Recall when he attempted to minimize the backlash by saying that they'd quiet the noise? Well, that was a joke. Fast forward 8 months, and here we are with Snow White still blowing up in his face about Iger's big idea. In one of his more recent remarks, Iger went on a tirade about the boycotts, calling them insulting and inflammatory. He claimed that the critics are a minority who don't comprehend Disney's vision for a more inclusive future. Alright, Bob, but here's the thing. If that's the case, why are your films failing left and right? But spoiler alert, it's not working. What is causing Snow White to receive so strong opposition? Perhaps the product, not the audience, is the issue.
Their story. How much money did Disney lose? Then last, what did it say? 200, how much? Because what? They're having a problem with their content because the people that you're talking about, us against them, we're not buying that crap.
Not to mention the CGI dwarfs. Oh, the dwarfs who believed this was a smart move. They appear cheap, lifeless, and downright embarrassing for a company with Disney's resources. The choice to replace real actors with this mess felt like a game over for Disney. It was obvious that they didn't try to make things special, but instead took everything for granted, and the fans noticed. The irony in all of this is that Bob Iger is supposedly preparing to retire in 2026 and is trying to secure his legacy, but at this rate, his legacy will be the person who brought Disney to its knees. It's almost depressing to watch, but then you remember all the egregious mistakes, tone-deaf decisions, and the way they keep doubling down on bad ideas, and it's hard to feel sorry for him. The situation escalated to the point where even Disney's board of directors reportedly lost patience. Some of them were advocating for Snow White to skip theaters altogether and go directly to Disney+, which, in all honesty, maybe their best course of action at this point. Sure, it won't prevent the film from being a disaster, but it might at least lessen the blow. The issue is that Tiger's ego won't allow that to happen. He's determined to disprove the SKS, even if it means putting the company through hardships.
To unpack, first I'll say, is any of it Bob Iger's fault? Of course it is, right? But Bob Iger wasn't uninvolved in setting the stage for what was going to come after him. You know, you're not Bob Iger and then shocked and dismayed to figure out who they replace you with.
The intriguing thing about Disney's issues is that they go much beyond Snow White. Their approach to filmmaking is at the heart of this significant boycott and crisis. Fans believe that Disney has completely lost sight of what made the company unique in the first place. Instead of emphasizing the presentation of timeless characters and stories, they are fixated on pushing every little point of woke agendas, and let's face it, it's not working. The audience can see right through it, and they aren't buying what Disney is selling. The solution isn't that simple. Disney should stop pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. The only thing they can do is own up to their mistakes. Pay attention to the fans and concentrate on producing high-quality material once more. But given Disney, they'll most likely continue to push their agenda on viewers while blaming them and foolishly questioning why things aren't improving at this rate. 2025 won't differ from 2023 or 2024. Some investors are accusing Disney of hurting itself with what they refer to as an awakened political agenda because of the company's tenacity. Disney's primary complaint is that it has strayed so far from its family-friendly beginnings that it is now alienating its core audience and undermining its own shareholders in the process.
So yeah, I have to tell you, I don't know anything really about the law, but if I were a shareholder, I would want a class action suit against Bob Iger because Bob is the reason it started.
This play centers around a 50-page letter written by Reed Rubenstein, a former officer at the Department of Justice who is currently the Senior Vice President of America First Legal, AFL. According to Rubenstein, Disney's initiatives are promoting anti-white and anti-police content, and their purported virtue signaling is backfiring spectacularly. Since February 2021, Disney's market capitalization has dropped by almost 40%. Yes, it has decreased from $341 billion to a pitiful $27 billion. To put it in perspective, that would be like witnessing a house shrink into a modest fixer-upper. Rubenstein criticized certain programs that support the woke agenda, such as Disney programming. Apparently, this show promotes the notion that skin color is the primary characteristic that defines identity and appearance and teaches children that racism in the world impacts both you and me. Discussing racism isn't the problem. Rather, it's how Disney is treating it. Critics claim that it is more about indoctrination than education. And then there is the notorious episode of Muppet Babies. Remember Gonzo, the oddball bird-like creature who has always been a touch out of the ordinary? Rubenstein contends that this plot is more about advancing a fair agenda than it is about acceptance. Despite Gonzo's reputation as a wild card, this storyline surprise is undoubtedly drawing attention. Rubenstein claims that the letter from Marvel also alludes to Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania, in which police are shown using tear gas on non-violent demonstrators. Events such as these exacerbate the situation by defaming law enforcement and offending Disney's more conservative audience.
Then your audience telling we're going to tell our story. No, you are here to tell the story that our audiences want to hear.
In light of this, the AFL believes that Disney should abandon its progressive stance and return to its historical foundation. What do you think about Disney and Bob Iger's attempts to advance a woke agenda in audience reaction? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating videos on Disney Backlash with the audience. Gene Hamilton, executive director of the AFL, claims that Disney has been veering toward an unquenchable activist movement that is pulling the brand far from its original magic. Instead of timeless stories and universal appeal, we're getting content that feels more like a lecture. See you in the next one.